21st century Catholics try to think, act, and live in a way that is faithful to the teaching of Jesus and to the example he set for us. Since we are by nature social beings, that clearly includes building a more just society, a society where the hungry are fed, the homeless find shelter, and most importantly, the dignity of every person is recognized and respected. But what exactly can and should Catholic Christians do about building a more just society? This is the subject of modern Catholic social teaching, a teaching which has been spelled out in a number of official church documents from popes, ecumenical councils, and synods of bishops in various countries around the world. There are 7 major themes that occur over and over again in these church teaching documents. But before we can examine them, we need to briefly define and understand 3 important concepts. The first of these concepts is justice. The Catholic understanding of justice has always recognized that there are at least 3 forms of justice. The first, commutative justice, is the first thing most of us think about when we hear or read that word. It means fairness and balance in the sense that everyone is treated more or less the same. If someone hires you to work for $25 an hour and you work 4 hours for them, then you must be paid $100. There is a balance here. Your employer receives what he deserves, 4 hours of your labor, and you get what you deserve, $100. Here's another example. It's Thanksgiving Day, and your entire family is seated around the table. Grandma carves the turkey and is careful to make sure that everyone gets exactly the same amount of white and dark meat, and she weighs and doles out the vegetables and dessert the very same way. Everyone gets exactly the same amount of food, and no one can complain that they got cheated. Commutative justice. But that's not how we share Thanksgiving dinner and other meals, is it? Grandma doesn't give her 5-year-old granddaughter the same amount of food as her 19-year-old grandson. No, the food is distributed according to need. The bigger people and those who have bigger appetites get more, maybe even seconds. Everyone at the meal is happy, even though they all don't get the same amount. This is the second form of justice, known as distributive justice. Resources, in this case the food, are distributed to each person according to their need. In order to do and be well, some need more and some need less. This is a different kind of balance, but it too is totally fair. As much as possible, everyone's needs are met. The third form of justice is a bit different. It's called social justice, and it is achieved by asking questions about the fairness of our society's institutions, our legal and political systems, our economic, financial, and educational institutions, and all the rest. Are these institutions and our society as a whole respecting the dignity of every person, and are they meeting the needs of all according to both commutative and distributive justice? If not, how can we change those institutions so they better serve the needs of all, and the common good as well? It is often said that there are 2 ways to achieve justice, that is, to make sure everyone's needs are met, and they are commonly called the 2 feet of justice. The first foot is charity. Someone has no food and is going hungry, so you and your friends generously take up a collection and give them something to eat, like Jesus feeding the 5,000. The traditional list of corporal and spiritual works of mercy comes to mind here. The second foot of justice is the already mentioned social justice. We work together to discover why people are hungry, and we try to fix that. We make the kind of changes needed. For example, workers and their families might be going hungry because even though they work full-time, they do not earn enough to pay for housing, transportation, medical care, and food. So we work to increase the minimum wage so that everyone who works full-time makes enough to meet their needs, including food. So the first, charity, is short-term. The people who lack food get fed for a day or 2. But the second, social justice, is long-term. We try to make changes that will eliminate hunger in the long run, so people no longer need charity. Of course, charity makes us feel good. We're the good people who feed poor people. And few people will criticize us for acting charitably. But working for social justice can be both difficult and controversial, and may take a lot of time and effort. And it usually means getting involved in politics. Think, for example, of Martin Luther King Jr. A second consideration before going further is the concept of human rights. We often speak of rights, the Bill of Rights, the right to life, and so forth. Well, what exactly is a right? Going all the way back to the ancient Greeks, to the time of Aristotle, a right has been defined as whatever is needed for a person to subsist in a truly human fashion. What does every person need in order to live in a way befitting a human being, in order to live a decent, dignified life? Human needs include not only food, shelter, clothing, and health care, but also respect and acceptance and a sense of belonging. That's the traditional definition of a human right, which the Catholic Church accepts and uses in her teaching. Every person has a need, and thus a right, to food, clothing, health care, and shelter, and in our society that means they have a right to the means to achieve those goods. In order to live and thrive in our modern technological society, a good education leading to a secure job that pays a living wage are required. So human rights are connected to human needs. The third and final consideration before we begin has to do with the question of the common good. Much of Catholic social teaching suggests that we all should be concerned with contributing to the common good. But what does that mean? The common good refers to that which benefits society as a whole, in contrast to the private good of individuals and sections of society. Keep this in mind. You may never directly personally benefit from whatever is in the common good, only indirectly. For example, even though you hope you will never need their services, and probably never will, paying taxes to fund your city's fire department and police department is in the common good. What they do for public safety is, in the long run, in our collective best interest. We all benefit, if not directly, then at least indirectly, with lower rates for fire insurance, for example. The same can be said for building ramps to give physically handicapped people access to public places. Even though you personally may never use such a ramp, it is in all of our best interest that people with physical limitations be able to fully participate in and contribute to life in our communities. So when we talk about the common good, we are asking about what benefits society as a whole, in contrast to the private good of individuals and sections of society. We put our common interests ahead of our own private interests. So, with these concepts in hand, commutative, distributive, and social justice, human rights, and the common good, we now turn our attention to the 7 major themes of Catholic social teaching.